Going to start the Senate Education Committee. We have a special order this morning on SB 15, the Post-Secondary Education Financial Aid Program, and we'll wait just a few seconds for the folks to come into the room. Yeah, the door was locked.
You want to call roll so we can get a
Okay, let's call roll, please.
Lou.
Here.
Huff. Block. Here. Block here. Hancock. Leyva. Mendoza. Here. Mendoza here. Pan. Here. Pan here. Vidak. Here. Vidak here. That's 5.
We have 5 members, sufficient for a quorum. So again, if the audience would please find a place to land quickly, we'd like to begin. Oh, there was a crowd out there.
Yeah, didn't realize that they were locked out. It's all our favorite people.
Okay, I think so.
So I think in terms of testimony, we're going to have CSU, the campaign, and then also another group, I can't remember who it was. And then they're going to have 2 students on the pro side.
Okay.
That'll talk about the program.
And is there any opposition?
I don't believe that there is. I think that the UC is submitting a letter that they support in concept, and they have support from the CSU, so I doubt that we'll have any opposition come up.
Okay, all right. Let's please find a seat, and let's begin with our special order of business, SB 15, Senator Block, with Senator Pro Tem De Leon making the introduction. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. First, good morning. Good morning, Chairman Liu. Good morning to the members of the Senate Education Committee. I am very pleased to be here today with my colleague, Senator Marty Block, to present SB 15, the Senate's plan for higher education. California is facing a crisis in higher education, and we must act now to head it off. By 2025, California will be short 1 million bachelor degrees to meet the demands of our economy, according to the PPIC. This forecast will become a reality if we don't make higher education more accessible and more affordable for all students. We must develop policies that support and incentivize students to graduate in 4 years. The economic benefit to the student and the state is undeniable. It is estimated that a student who takes 6 years to earn a degree will spend approximately $60,000 more on tuition, fees, books, as well as bus pass and other transportation costs. This same student will likely earn less than over $50,000 less over his or her lifetime. SB 15 focuses on 3 main issues: accessibility, affordability, and completion. Accessibility. California must ensure its students have access to higher education, whether it's public or private nonprofit. While the main aspects of SB 15 affect UC as well as CSU students, the bill also represents and repeals the 11% Cal Grant reduction for California students attending independent private nonprofit institutions. This reduction, included in the governor's proposed budget, is a direct assault on college access for low-income students. We mustn't penalize a young woman from a low-income community just because she chooses to go to Stanford or to Loyola or Occidental or another private independent college. Californians must be loyal to the California student in this case. Now, I can speak on this issue personally. Graduating from Pitzer College of the Claremont Colleges, a private nonprofit institution, would have been impossible for me, not for the Cal Grant funding. And it's not a stretch to say that if it wasn't for Cal Grant B specifically, I would not be here today. That is just my reality. Now, affordability. Once a student has been accepted into college, we must ensure that he or she can actually afford it. Accessibility is one issue. Once you overcome that large obstacle, that hurdle, and once you actually have been accepted, affordability becomes the issue. SB 15 increases the number of competitive Cal Grants by 7,500 statewide. Under the Senate's plan, we also propose to repeal the UC's 5% tuition tax hike on all California students. So whether you're low income, whether you're middle class or high income, whether you're from the Central Valley, the Coast, Inland Empire, Northern California, or Southern California, our Senate plan proposes to eliminate the tuition tax hike on all UC students. Now, once you achieve accessibility, and once we can solve the conundrum, which is affordability, for many of these working class students throughout the state of California, the issue becomes about completion. And this is especially acute when it comes to the Cal State University system. This bill establishes the Graduation Incentive Grant, the SIG, the GIG, for CSU students. This grant recognizes the total cost of education and incentivizes students to complete 15 units a semester, which will enable them to graduate in 4 years. Colleagues, I grew up in a household headed up by a single mother in one of the poorest neighborhoods in San Diego. My mother worked very hard so my 2 sisters and I could live a better life. And she did. Higher education is a passport to opportunity, and we must ensure that all California students, regardless of income, regardless of race or ethnicity or geographical area, have this opportunity. SB 15 is the first step in reinventing or reinvesting in higher education. Madam Chair, I look forward to working with you, with my colleague, with our colleague, the main author of this measure, that is Senator Block, as well as our colleagues, both Republicans as well as Democrats, the educational stakeholders, the parents of the working families, and especially our colleagues on the Assembly side, so we can move forward a comprehensive package that's not driven by politics, but a comprehensive package that's driven organically for the interest, first and foremost, of these students throughout the state of California. Madam Chair, I thank you very much for your indulgence, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote. With that, I have my colleague, the joint author, Mr. Marty Block.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I am very proud to be a joint author of this bill with the Pro Tem and with the Chair of the Education Committee, Senator Liu. As the Pro Tem drew on his own experience, his compelling story growing up, going to college, and fighting the obstacles he had to fight, I spent 26 years at San Diego State University and saw student after student come through my office, come into classes I was teaching where there just weren't seats available. Sometimes 100 students in a class that had 30 seats. And students had, these were classes a student needed to graduate. A student needed to take additional sequence classes because these were prerequisite classes, and yet they couldn't get the classes, so they couldn't graduate in 4 years or 5 years or sometimes even in 6 years. I was president of the San Diego Community College District Board of Trustees for 8 years. And every year, the best time of a trustee's job is to see students walk across the stage with their AA degrees, ready to transfer to a 4-year institution. And the doors were shut to many of these students because there just wasn't room in our 4-year institutions for these transfer students, in our public 4-year institutions. So this bill, SB 15, would look at both of those problems and help to resolve the problems, as the Pro Tem said, of access, and also takes on affordability. And the key to resolving these problems is completion, enabling students and encouraging students to finish a 4-year degree in 4 years. As the Pro Tem indicated, for a student who takes 6 years instead of 4 years to graduate, they incur more than $110,000 in extra expenses and lost wages. $110,000. Any family in California would be horrified at that figure. And yet, while we all know it makes no sense to take 6 years instead of 4 because of, frankly, the state's underfunding of higher education and cuts that we all had to make during the recession, we now find a graduation rate at the CSU, the 4-year graduation rate of the fall 2009 cohort, those who started in 2009 and graduated 4 years later, only 17.3%. Now, look at the other, that's 83% who didn't graduate in 4 years. The projected 4-year cohort for 2013, the graduation rate in 4 years will be about 18.5%, a little bit better, but not much. And the fault, this isn't to point fingers at the CSU. We have not properly resourced them as a state. So what this bill intends to do to help the colleges, to help the students, to help our employers, because as the pro tem said, Public Policy Institute of California said that we need 1 million more workers with bachelor's degrees in the workforce by 2025. To help the workforce, to help our high school and community college students get access, SB 15 does several things. Number one, it creates a graduation incentive grant, which tells students basically if they finish in 4 years, get a 4-year degree in 4 years, they will get an additional $4,500, basically a reward for 4-year graduation. And it's broken up in increments, but it's $4,500 over the 4 years. Now that in addition to the $110,000 they'll save that I mentioned before. It expresses the intent of the legislature, of the Senate, to help students get that 4-year degree in 4 years by providing funding for more faculty to teach the bottleneck classes so students don't end up having to stay extra years, for career counselors to help students decide early in their academic career what career path they wish to pursue, and for academic advisors so that once students know what career they want, they know the best path to get there, the most efficient path, the most efficient sequence of courses. This is all part of the intent of SB 15. SB 15, as the pro tem said, also adds 7,500 competitive Cal Grants to help students with affordability issues. It repeals the governor's proposed 11% cut to private institutions like Pitzer, like University of San Diego, University of San Francisco, like UOP. These colleges all help the publics deal with the great access issues that they have. And finally, it rejects the proposed 5% tuition increase of the UC. If we're going to keep schools affordable, as the pro tem has mentioned, we have to try to make sure that the increases needed by our 4-year institutions aren't borne on the backs of the students who can ill afford it, instead are covered by the state. So that's what SB 15 does. It is supported by numerous education organizations, including the CSU, including in concept right now by the University of California, including the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities, including the Campaign for College Opportunity and many others. It's also supported by the business community. We have organizations like the North Bay Leadership Council, the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, and the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce who are supportive of the bill because they know there's a workforce need. And it's also supported by labor organizations. The California Federation of Teachers is supportive, AFSCME is supportive, and others. With me today and with the pro tem, we have several witnesses. And I'd like to ask them to come up. A couple have not arrived yet, so we'll hear from them. Michelle, if you all can just come up, introduce yourselves and your organization. And Karen Zamaripa is going to be our first witness, and I see she was stuck in traffic and has just gotten here from the CSU. So we have a handful of witnesses, and then we'll hopefully hear some additional support. Karen, do you want to?
A handful of witnesses and some more Me Too's?
Yes.
Okay.
That is our hope.
All right.
And hopefully, and we believe, there is no known opposition.
Thank you. In support of the bill, please.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Siqueiros. I'm the president of the Campaign for College Opportunity. Madam Chair, several years ago, we were under a desk after an earthquake hit, and we were meeting, so I'm hopeful that today we won't have a similar recurrence. I serve as president of the Campaign for College Opportunity, an organization that's a coalition of civil rights and business leaders that came together knowing that the future of California really depends on whether or not we educate more of our own students in this state, and not only make sure that they have a spot in college, but that they complete college once they get there. After several years of bad news for higher education, I'm really thrilled to be in front of you today, supporting what I think is really ambitious legislation that's bold and will communicate a more positive message to all of our children in California that the bad news in higher education might actually just be over, that we can fund and support our public universities and our community colleges, that we will provide them not only money for the possibility of going to college, but that we are going to ensure that once they get there, we're going to provide support services for them to complete, that we will give them incentive grants, as Senator Block and Senator De Leon mentioned, to ensure that they actually can enroll full-time and get that degree and save not only themselves money and not take out as many loans, but make sure that they leave a spot free and open for the next students. We are hugely concerned about our inability thus far to really serve all of the students. The fact that the CSU has continuously turned away because it doesn't have support to serve all of the eligible transfer students and eligible freshmen is a problem that we have to solve, and finally this is legislation that gets there. Like Senator De Leon, my mother worked as a seamstress, low income, raised me, knowing that the only opportunity for me to get ahead was if I went to college. And I only went to college because of leaders like you that made sure that I could get a Cal grant and have financial aid to get me there. And that I was prepared because of outreach and service supports that other students at other universities provided. This, next few days, I'm taking my niece, Paulina Cuevas, who's sitting behind me, and my daughter on their first college visits. And I think it's about time that we communicate to all of our children that they will have a spot in college for them, and you all can make it possible. Sometimes we support policy because it's the morally correct thing to do, because we know it's good for others. And sometimes we support policy because it's good for the bottom line, and because, at the end of the day, you all don't have the luxury of working with unlimited resources. But research has proven that every dollar you spend on higher education reaps $4.50 in return. If I asked anybody in this audience if they would invest in stocks and bonds that provided a 1 to 4 return, I suspect everybody would raise their hands. And that's essentially what you're doing by supporting a bill like Senate Bill 15. So today you get to have the pleasure, I hope, of doing what is morally correct and also what's good for the bottom line in California. So I urge your A vote.